of energy production, I was beginning to wonder that things were working too well without me in that seat, so I decided I better put somebody in there. And I've put a really great person in there. Tori Bombard is our new AGM Energy Production. And sitting right next to Tori is someone that needs no introduction either. You've heard him present before. Mike Dammer is our new Emerging Technologies Manager. I don't think I'm missing anybody on my team. Okay, good. We're glad to have those folks in those positions. And we do have two presentations today, as you mentioned, electric system compliance and security, and then solar permitting. So Mr. Larry Watt is going to talk to us about compliance and security.
Good morning, Larry.
Good morning. I'd like to start by introducing myself, Larry Watt. I'm Manager of Electric System Compliance and Security. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming today to listen to my spiel. The committee, the mayor, the utility members, thank you very much. I have the great good pleasure of being the Manager of Electric System Compliance. I feel very lucky and privileged to do this job. This job came about in about 2007. This position started. It started as a result of something that happened 20 years ago. How do I advance the slides?
It's right here.
That's me.
About 20 years ago, 50 million people were put into the dark. That's coming up on August 14th. That'll be our 20-year thing. Congress got together after that and said, what can we do about this to prevent that kind of thing from happening again? And what they decided is, because of the Commerce Clause in the Constitution, that they could regulate electricity. They could add rules that we would be mandatorily compliant with. So they went ahead and authorized FERC to authorize a sub-reliability entity called NERC to build out a set of standards with industry input that we would have to follow. And then they built out a structure of actually checking on it, where they could update the standards, where they could come to the entities and audit the entities, and where the entities were found wanting, they could go ahead and help them correct, and if necessary, fine, that kind of thing. So it's very similar in nature to how the EPA works. They're a quasi-judicial group underneath Congress and Department of Energy, and then FERC, and then NERC. There's a whole chain of them. But one of the most important aspects of what they've done is they said we need to manage reliability, we need to manage resiliency, and we need to manage security. Today, I'm mostly going to be talking about security, both physical security and cybersecurity. This is an important aspect of our job and my work group. The main aspects of security that, or the principles of security that anybody who does this job knows about is you do access control, you do surveillance or monitoring, and then you test. So throughout everything you'll hear over the next 15 to 20 minutes, you'll hear repeating things about access control, surveillance or monitoring, and then testing. A good example would be incident response, where we do incident response exercises. Some of the programs that we handle under this to do the control of access is the badge program. So anybody who walks around in one of our buildings has to have a badge on and visible, and we do that for physical security so that our people know that that person is authorized to be there. We have visitor control programs where they have to sign in with the guards, that kind of thing. And that all comes under what's called the physical access control program. We've done extra steps here at Lakeland Electric where we went ahead and added pin pads. The idea there is somebody can't grab a badge, use your badge to get into a space. They have to know the code too. It slows you down a little bit at the door, but we're all used to it now, and it works well for us. So it's kind of a same thing as a multi-factor for getting into your computers. We've installed things like panic buttons, very similar to a fire pole or a fire station pole, like on the back wall back there. It's a little black device with two buttons. You push the two buttons at the same time. You hold them down for a second. A police officer is notified. It's not for fire. It's not for medical. We've got other ways to do that. But because we know that bad things happen, we're putting things in place to guard against it. Another thing that we've done here is we've installed a gunshot detection system here on this floor and on the second floor. And with that, and we've connected that into the city's 911 call center, the emergency call center. So if something were to happen anywhere on the first floor or second floor, and they've tested it even higher and it still reacts, they get a strobe in the 911 call center, and some of their security systems switch over to show where the shot was fired, and they can use the system to actually track the bad actor through the first and second floors. And then they have capability to go beyond that. Now, this is a pilot program to see how it all works and see how we would manage it. There's a lot of implications to announcing that somebody's on the floor, the safety, the security, the HR aspect. So we're still working through some of that. But the automated part where we get the police officer on site quick, that's already in place and working. Another subject that comes up is substation hardening. One of the things that we're looking into is how we can protect our substations from people who are out and unnecessarily shooting guns at our transformers and other devices. We want to protect those, but we want to be reasonable at how we do it. The costs at this point are really high, and we're investigating a lot of different technologies with a lot of different representatives, companies and vendors. We're working with our peers in the state. Most of the utility companies in the state went to see a presentation that was held a couple of months ago where they actually put up some of the different protections, and they actually were allowed to shoot up to a 50 caliber machine gun at this stuff to see what it did, how it reacted. We're looking into all the higher tech stuff like that and low tech, just T-walls and other things like that we could put in. Now, again, there's some engineering that has to happen. There's some cost-benefit analysis that has to happen. But this is something that we're looking into. Another thing that we're working actively on is security assessments. We recently did security assessments with some people from risk management and from the police department here in Lakeland, where we did what's called a SEPTID. It's a security assessment that's based on the environmental design of the facility itself. We did one for this building, and we did one for the T&D warehouse building. And from it, you pick out your low-hanging fruit in those areas of concern, and then we build out a budget and we build out a plan to move forward and get it to where we want it to be. Now, one of the things I should say is we have about 42 facilities, mostly substations, and substations are unmanned, so surveillance is an important part of that. So we track stuff like fence height, barbed wire, gates, cameras, alarms. In 3 of our substations, we actually have beams. If you cross them, alarms go off. Now, we do this with a risk-based approach. We don't do this in all the substations. We do this in the larger substations that are more independent or isolated from other buildings and people. And this helps us keep costs down while still maintaining a good security stance. Now, that said, we're trying to improve how we do all this type of business. One of the things that we're working towards is having an inherent risk-based analysis and a mitigation plan for each of our facilities with a 5-year rolling plan. This is something that's fairly new. Instead of doing industry norms and best practices, we're moving towards a risk-based approach to analyze this stuff, and then a cost-benefit analysis to decide what we're going to do. And then we're comparing that with what the DHS and CISA and others say, because we included a lot of the information we have in databases that they use to compare our security footprint and stance to others of like size. We've had 6 of our substations and a couple of our buildings already analyzed where the DHS representative came here to help us do that. And at the time, which was a few years ago, we were already ahead of the curve. Since then, we've done a lot of work to improve using the information they provided back to us, both on the security base itself and then the resilience and our ability to recover from an issue. So we're working across that whole spectrum there. One of the biggest things I hope to provide in about 6 months to the whole management team here is a security dashboard that says, this is where our biggest problem is security-wise. This is at this location what the security stance is. And this considers a lot of things. We chose a military-grade risk-based analysis system to follow, or a framework to follow. And we're going to be able to provide a dashboard to the general manager, the risk manager, the police, or anybody else who has a need for it. And it will just help us do a better job of managing by knowing what we need to know in advance instead of trying to figure it out after the fact. And a lot of this is being prompted by what's happening elsewhere in the world. I'm sure you've heard about what happened in North Carolina, what's happened out in Oregon and Washington. You know, it's my job to try to prevent that and to react to it. So that's where the incident response comes in. We're trying to grow out our incident response capability to match what the city and what the system needs. And we're doing that actively. Now, that's mostly, one of the most important things I got to say is that we're not doing this independently. I realize that Lakeland Electric is a member or a department of the city. We're not independent of the city. So when I do something like make a new policy to bring to him to cover, hey, this is how we're going to move to a better physical security stance, we took it to facility security, we took it to risk management, we took it to human resources, and we took it to the Lakeland, or not the Lakeland Police Department, but a few of the other agencies, the city attorney's office, and had them review our plan to make sure it was good. And one of the first steps in the plan is it says you will build consensus with all these departments on how you will go forward and do this business. So that's a little bit on the physical side. Now, one of the most important things we do on the physical side is protect our cyber side. If we have a firewall somewhere, we have to make sure it's in a safe space. If we have relays in a relay house in a substation, we have to make sure it's protected. So there is that interconnection between physical security and cybersecurity. One of the most important things I can tell you, though, is, again, Lakeland Electric is not doing this in a silo. My purview is operational technology. Operational technology is those technologies that actually change the state of something or move something. A good example is in a substation, a breaker could be opened or closed. In a generating plant, you can turn up the fuel input, you can turn it down, you can turn up the frequency or turn it down. You know, you can do the different things you can do in a power plant. As opposed to IT, which is about information. Now, the big thing when you talk IT versus OT is that while there is some convergence because of modernization, they're treated different. IT, you can say, hey, this weekend we're going to turn it off, we're going to update it. But I don't think anybody wants me to turn off the system control computers over the weekend and leave them off for 4 hours. So how you patch, how you harden, it's a big change. And so IT doesn't take care of that. The people who actually operate and maintain the systems take care of themselves. There is a lot of connectivity with city telecommunications, city telephone, and IT, though, because to get to any of our systems, you have to go through their systems. Although we do our best to keep them isolated or segmented. So city IT handles IT. We protect the OT. So some of the things that we do, first off, I'll say that there's a mandatory set of standards that say you shall do this, and we're tested on this every 3 years. And they're risk-based standards, and they model on the NIST standards. So there's an almost correlation of 1-to-1. If it says, hey, you should be updating your passwords every year, the standards that I follow say we have to follow it do it every year. A large part of my job is to make sure I communicate that to the people who manage the systems so they know the rules. And then I internally audit and guide the people who do it so that we make sure that that's what is actually set. Some of the things that we do under that are supply chain management. If we're going to buy a new device, new software, new cyber asset, and put it in the system before we buy it, we vet the company and we vet the stuff in the box. Whatever the software is, whatever the parts of the software is, we look into all of that. We do an analysis and say, these are the 6 major things we have to watch for, and then we develop mitigation plans for those things. Or it may be that we don't have to worry about something like remote connectivity, because it's once we purchase it, we have no connectivity or no work with the original vendor anymore, and it's in isolation. So that's one of those areas that we don't have to worry about, and we would record that and manage that. But incident response, being notified that they've been hacked or whatever, or otherwise compromised, we work that into contracts, we work that into agreements. And so this is some of the type of supply chain stuff, that we work on. Another thing is long haul communication security. We make sure it's all encrypted. That's something else that's under our standard. The cyber vulnerability assessments. Although entities are allowed to do those themselves, we bring in outsiders. The stuff they do under, say, a vulnerability assessment is they do a gap analysis. Is the equipment and the configuration you say you have, is that really what you have? You don't want surprises. You don't want to find a Wi-Fi router somewhere on the end of one of your networks. So we bring in outsiders to do that. It gives us a level of independence, and I get a report at the end, and that's what it is. It's not something that I massaged or modified. And then we go fix whatever they find. And what you'll find is our EMS group, which is our major customers, do a really good job at this. They don't find very much. But they look for things like outdated encryption technologies, out-of-date certificates, a lot of what some people like to call nerd stuff. But they work very hard to keep us safe from a cybersecurity kind of standpoint. We are working towards improving a lot of these programs, maturing them. These standards, the cybersecurity standards, really didn't go live for Lakeland Electric until 2016. So we're at that 2.0 level. We're really working towards getting to that 5.0 level. Let's see. Some of the one of the things that we did recently over the last about year and a half now is we assigned somebody to be a vulnerability specialist. Her actual job title is slightly different than this, but this is what she's doing. She's tracking known vulnerabilities as announced by companies and by the government, and doing a top-down analysis of our systems. So we have a really good patching program. We know every software that's in our boxes. Every month we're going out to say, is there a patch, is there a patch? Well, using this top-down, we do find things that our patching program would not find because of the way that it's all interconnected and the way that some things are buried, one software kernel inside of another piece of software, that kind of thing. And we've found a couple of things already doing this, so I'm very pleased that we're able to improve our cybersecurity professionalism or level through this. One of the other things that she's doing for us is she's liaising now regularly with IT. So instead of me calling them once a month or once in a while, now I have somebody who's going to their meetings, and they participate and they share all the information. We tell them, hey, what we're hearing in the OT systems. They tell us what they're hearing in the IT systems. And there's a lot of information sharing going on. Because we have regulators, she's one of the people who will talk to the regulators for us. She's got her finger on the pulse of where we're at on everything, so she's a good person to have in a room every time we talk to them. She's also managing some of the larger projects. It's something you may hear about. It will make national news. In November, there's going to be a nationwide grid incident response exercise. And what you do is you test your incident response plan. This is very similar to us testing our storm plan, but only on a statewide kind of thing. In this case, the FBI, DHS, local police agencies, some of the agencies responsible for cybersecurity like CISA, DOD, some state National Guards, some of the joint centers that states have. I think Florida has a joint, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the acronym, but they grab all the different emergency services and put them under one umbrella. They'll be part of it. Lakeland Electric is going to participate. in the past, we've observed and we have participated lightly. We hope to this time participate a lot heavier. We're going to try to bring in some of the offices outside of Lakeland Electric to actually participate. City communications, because if something happens, one of the worst things that can happen is you don't share your story before it gets out of hand. That's something that happened with the North Carolina attacks. Some of the information control got out of hand. So we're going to build out that capability and build out those paths. It's one of those kind of things, if you train on it and you do like you train on it, you're going to be happy with the results. But if you don't train on it, you may not be so happy with the results. So in November, you may hear about us doing this. You'll definitely see something in the news about the nationwide grid thing. It's not a real attack. Every year, a couple of places and news agencies report it as a real attack. It won't be. We'll be doing an exercise there, and she's going to help us manage that and get us ready for that. What else is going on? Some of the things that we're working on improving, not only our human aspect, the technical aspect, is we've improved recently our ticketing system, our change management system. Change management is key to cybersecurity. And in this case, we aligned it better with the processes that we use. And again, this is the folks who manage your EMS doing most of this work. Another thing that they've done is they've added some functionality to what's called a SIEM. Really, it's a fancy name for a log that does some analysis and will alert you if it sees issues with things happening in your system. So we've already improved that some. Something else we're working on right now is we're working on a grant with APPA for about $500,000 worth of network technology. One of them is a network sensor. It's kind of like the difference between having somebody at the door guarding everything and having somebody inside the house guarding everything. We do a really good job already at the door with the checkpoint firewalls and the other equipment we use to detect intrusions. But once I get inside, it normally takes about 9 months to detect the fact that a bad actor is inside your house. So one of the things we're buying is something that will help pick up on the fact that a bad actor is in your house. We don't ever expect it to go off, but I feel safer for having it there. And if we can get APPA and the DOE to pay for it, so much better. Some of the other things we're going for is an intelligence SIEM, and it does the logging and alerting just at a higher level. It sees things that where not only does it see the things we tell it to trigger for, but it's looking for things that we don't know we should be looking for, any kind of behavioral or pattern thing it's seeing. And the same as the network monitor. We're moving into key into lock kind of thing, or virus signature kind of thing, to intelligent technologies that go beyond that. And the last thing is multi-factor authentication. You may have heard of something called zero trust technology, and in this case, what we're doing is we'd like to purchase a device that helps us do zero trust, machine to machine, human to machine, where it asks for that next level of credential, and it's denied by default. And if you want to get in, you better know the right way to get in. Otherwise, you won't get in. That's some of the compliance efforts that we're doing for cybersecurity and beyond compliance. Like at this point, I don't need an intelligent SIEM. I just need a log file, but we're trying to do more than we're required to do, because these standards really are the minimum we need to do. We're going for more. At this point, I've talked a lot. I wonder if anybody has any questions for me.
Yes, Dan.
Yeah, me, oh.
Go ahead.
As you're looking for bad actors, I want to be careful I ask this question. Are penetration tests on IT systems and connected devices performed on frequent random intervals?
We do not perform what's called penetration testing on our ICS systems, our OT systems. I'm aware that the city is doing that some on the IT systems, and in the real world, they would have to go through the IT systems to get to our OT systems. So we have that buffer there. We do the sister or brother to the penetration testing by doing the cyber vulnerability analysis. What it does is it goes out there, it does that gap analysis I talked about. It goes and looks at the configuration of your devices. It looks at the topology of your system. It looks how you have it segmented and divided up both logically and physically. It looks at things like how old are your patch dates? Are you using off-the-shelf software? Are you using bespoke software? Are you using technologies that are known to be highly vulnerable and all this stuff? And when we get the report back from this, we really do know that our system is secure where it has this critical flaw. And in fact, one of the things we demand from the CVA software and from our consultants on this is page one, whatever your highest critical is, it's got to be labeled as such. They're to tell us this is a critical issue, this is an important issue, this is a medium issue, this is a low issue. And we handle them in that order. The most important thing, we go fix that first.
How frequently, Larry? How frequently are we doing it?
Okay, so we do that at least once a year. On some years, we'll do it twice a year. If there's been big changes, we have the software to do it ourselves. And we're running that software once a month now in-house. But that's not the same thing as having a professional from the outside who has the regulatory experience. Most of them are former military. And they come in and they really put our system through a pretty good test and they tell us. Now, the reason I don't want to do penetration testing on the OT systems is, can you imagine a generating plant is running and they do get in and they go, what's this do? And then the plant shuts down. We don't want that. It would be okay probably to do on the physical side, but on the software, operating system, networking side, I'm a little bit more leery to do that.
That's your question, Dan.
Kind of, yeah.
I thought it was kind of. You want to be the other part of it?
No, I'll leave it alone.
All right, okay. Commissioner McCarley.
Thank you for this. This is so interesting, and I want to applaud the multi-departmental conversations that you're having, and it's so important to be across disciplines and having those conversations on both sides so everybody knows what's going on, just even if it's reporting. I think that's critical to success, so I appreciate that. With regard, and I wanted to compliment the beyond compliance. I think you should stitch that on a pillow and put that somewhere because it's a really good idea and it's really important to think ahead so that you're not ever on your heels. So I applaud that as well. My question is about the nationwide grid test. I was at a Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Council meeting 2 weeks ago with regard to transportation and cyber Florida security. Cybersecurity Florida is an entity through the state of Florida. Are they participating in that? Do you know?
What will have to happen is a utility or a security agency associated would invite them to the table.
Yeah.
So in the past, we've actually asked the DHS representative for the state of Florida to actually sit at our table, and he watched us do one of these exercises. In the past, we've brought in the fire department and the police department and had them sit at the table with us. And they help us do things like make decisions, is this when we should call the FBI, that kind of thing. But at this point, as far as I know, that agency.
You just mentioned other Florida
Yeah.
agencies, so that's why I thought that was interesting that I just heard about that last week in a very intensive presentation on cybersecurity for municipalities and through governmental entities throughout the state of Florida. DHS, just for the public, is Department of Homeland Security. I just want to clear that up. Sometimes we throw around a lot of letters. And then with that national grid test, back to that point, would that also include like the Office of Director of National Intelligence? You're talking about Homeland Security and some of those national entities. Like, would that be, also just the other participants in that? It seems very holistic, I guess, is my question. Do you feel that way?
It is very holistic.
Okay. Thanks.
For example, TICO or FPL, they will actually have even more. They'll bring in every agency that they can that they may contact during an emergency. Now, we have to scale because of the size of Lakeland Electric and our capabilities. But even if I'm not on the phone with them, they are on the phone with the larger entities. And they're at the desk too. They bring them into the same room to do these exercises. On the second day of the exercises, because it is a 2-day exercise, they get the general managers of large utilities and of many of the agencies you just mentioned. They put them all in a room and say, what did we just learn? The exercises are generally designed around what is the most current issues and what are the forecast issues for reliability. So if they've seen a few things in a while that they expect to get worse, that's the drill that they give us to run.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Sal, go ahead.
Hey Larry, appreciate everything you guys have done. I know earlier this year I had a meeting with Mike, Larry, and Scott, so it's good to see a lot of stuff going on. At some point, it'd be nice if it's possible to see a tour of some of the stuff that got put in place. And then I had some specific questions, and you don't have to answer it directly, but for data backup, do we have something in place for that, for like customer data? Let's say somebody hijacks it and encrypts it, do we have something in place to restore it and in a reasonable time?
So I believe the best way to answer it is we don't keep customer data in our power plant, systems. We don't generally keep customer data in our ICS or OT systems. There is a connectivity, there's a bridge there. That way the system operators can look up information, of a house or location. But as far as I know, in general, it doesn't store any of that information. I would have to ask Roy or.
It's handled on the IT side.
Yeah, it's protected at the IT level also, but we are pursuing heavily a DR site, a disaster recovery site for backup, if you want to relay that.
Okay. So we have a off-site backup to restore it if we needed to. The other one is SCADA systems, and if I misspeak, let me know, which is like supervisory control and of the power plants. I only bring this up because I know we've done it to other countries, so it could happen to us. And even if it's off the network, if somebody was able to wipe off the programming of our machines and motors, you don't have to answer this too, but have we considered restoring those programs or a way to back it up if somebody came in and wiped that stuff off, where we'd have to reprogram all the PLCs and stuff?
So there's about 100 requirements across 12 or 13 standards just about cybersecurity. And one of them is incident recovery, CIP9. It makes it so that we have to have the ability to recover at the micro level and at the macro level. And we have to have backups separate from the system itself or the primary thing that's operating it. And the EMS folks have designed a really good system where they can pretty much spin up a new system almost immediately after an attack if the equipment itself is not damaged. If the equipment is damaged, then it's about getting equipment to replace some of the equipment.
Right.
And we've talked through scenarios where he would have to do something what he called EMS in a box, where he would take a few systems, put it together, get it connected up, and get something for the system operators to use initially, and then to build out from there.
Okay. Thank you.
With respect to the ratings that you would like to look at to see the scoring, is that something that you might want to represent looking at on the part of the committee without the committee having to see it as well? In other words.
Yeah, I don't think the whole committee wants to be there. It's just more of either the ratings or just a site tour, because when we went to the APPA conference in Seattle just last month, got to meet with some vendors and got to talk to DHS specifically, and just want to see some of these barriers and hardening put in place, just to get some feedback from you guys, how it's working and what's it cost. Because I think one of the biggest things is always cost. So in our private meeting, I proposed some solutions where we could probably do it in-house, but I believe there were some concerns, and at some point we could probably see if we can work around those, any concerns. Just curious, that's all, just want to follow up. But you guys, it sounds like you're doing a lot of good stuff, so just kind of want to see it in action.
Probably do a follow-up meeting, Sue, because you went to the APPA, and did you go to the FMEA conference in Sarasota, or St. Pete, I'm sorry?
Not that one.
So there was a presentation there about substation attacks, too. Terry, you were there. So we could do a follow-up with you as we did before and go over the latest that we've heard from conferences and whatnot. That'd be worthwhile to do probably. So we'll set up a meeting follow-up meeting with you.
Represents our highest sophistication on security on the utility
Yeah,
committee, so.
Absolutely.
That's why that's. a
Subject
good-
matter expert, yeah.
Yes, we're very glad. I have a question, which is, as you look at future needs, how much of what you feel you're limited by is budgeting dollars? How much of it is philosophical, what we ought to be doing? You know, if you can juxtapose those two things.
It's an interesting question. When I go to management here for funds for security, they have not,
No.
they've not outright denied.
Okay.
I have to prove my case before I can, you know.
So you have to work
access the
for it.
funds.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I have to work for it. Pushback on so convenient, there's always the convenience versus security question. A good example is people don't want to wear their badge, right? But the rule is you wear your badge. People don't want to use a PIN pad, they want to use a swipe. And when we installed the PIN pads, there was an initial few people who were a little bit louder about it. But you swipe, you hit a few numbers, you walk through the door. It's not a big deal, they learn.
Code authentication is prevalent through everything we're doing.
And if you're not doing multi-factor at home, when you sign into Google or to any of those other agencies that may deliver overnight or something, you probably should. Just, yeah, everybody needs to be ready to take care, manage their own security as well as manage the security while they're on site here. Yeah.
Okay. So you're not frustrated, is what I'm sensing, in terms of abilities to do things that ought to be done.
They've been very responsive.
Good, good. Other questions? Yes. Councilmember Troutman.
That's a good segue to one of the questions I wrote down, with Lakeland Electric being so involved in the business community, where you're talking about LEDC or the chamber, from an advocacy perspective, just based on what you just stated, are we making any efforts to go out and convey to the business community or to families about how important they are in this defense against cybersecurity as well?
I think that that may be me stepping into the IT department's bailiwick a little bit if I do that. I'm a little bit the guy who's in the cave.
Were you ever in the Wizard of Oz? Just tell us.
I sit in one of the more secure areas of Lakeland Electric, near the system operators on that same floor, and it's locked down pretty tight. Where I'll just say it's locked down tighter than most of the other areas of the city. So I don't get out very often to talk to the community as part of this job.
I guess not necessarily you per se, but LE as a organization. I mean, one of the benefits or value adds that I was able to receive from the APPA conference 2 years ago was that fact that this is our most vulnerable area from a national defense standpoint. And so I don't think the average citizen or the average business owner is aware of that, how important that is. And so maybe that's not your role, maybe that's Catherine and her department, finding ways that they can continue to be a value add to the community here locally. So just was a thought that came to mind.
Any other comments? Larry Caveman Watt, thank you for your question.
Thank you.
We're gonna talk, this was presented at the commission. Dale Marquardt and Scott presented this at the commission meeting previously, but we had, because of timing that particular month, we didn't have a chance to go the normal route of going through utility committee. And this is an important subject as well. You see on our social media, if you're interested in solar, contact us. So we kind of want you to know what we're have in mind when we say contact us about solar. And we want, these folks are working really great. Dale and Scott are working together really great because there's a permitting angle to this. There's a LE safety angle to it. But we do want to make that as doable as possible for our customers. So if they do want to do solar, they can know exactly what they need to do. So Dale and Scott are going to tell you what we are cooking up and along those lines. I don't know who's.
So Larry Caveman Watt is gonna stick. Just so you know.
So you want nicknames?
That's permanent. If you got one for me, go ahead, let's do it. All right, so go ahead and go to the first slide. So this, Mike's exactly right on this. This is one of those additional cross-departmental, cross-functional, our customers expect and need a quality service, and we're doing everything we can to get there. All right, this thing's all gonna center around not we're gonna add more solar or any of those. This is a customer-driven thing that's happening. So solar proliferation across the world, okay, is increasing. 33% in the United States last year. 45% of all new capacity being installed around the world is solar. And right now, the United States, for the first time ever, is 5% solar, right? So, and we're heading in that direction. With that amount of increase and 5%, we're gonna be 20% or so here pretty quick. Go to the next one. All right, so reason, right? Yeah, subsidies and tax incentives, yes. Also, the fact that solar has been, as a result of the economies of scale on the mass production, costs have dropped in half. Well, not so much half anymore. Supply chain and materials and finding those things has pushed it back up a little bit. If you look at the right-hand column and it says solar decline price is 52%, it's probably less than that now as a result of inflationary pressures. If you also look on the right-hand side and look and you see California, Texas, and Florida, and who's got the most megawatts, it's also kind of driven by population too, right? So that's 1, 2, and 3 in population. We're kind of lined up with our size right now. North Carolina jumped their population. They're pushing pretty hard, but that's going on. So the real trick here is the industry expects 13% of all homes by 2030 to have solar on them. So as a result of that happening, our utility will be almost 50 megawatts of residential installed solar. We're only a 400 average megawatt utility. That's going to be a significant amount of solar we'll have to manage on the grid. So I'm going to turn it over to Dale. He's going to do what the city's been doing on their portion of it, and then I'm going to finish up and show you what LE's been doing to kind of, as this coming wave is going to come after us, how are we getting in front of it before we get in trouble?
All right. Good morning. I'm Dale Markworth, the city billing official. Here in Lakeland, we have seen a huge surge in solar permit applications over the past 2 years. We went from 55 applications in 2020 to 285 in 2022. As you can see, that's a 5% increase in 2 years. But growth does not come without a challenge. We received many of the same emails from residents who felt the same permitting process was too challenging. The concern generally followed 3 themes: the number of code compliant requirements, turnaround time, difference between Lakeland and other jurisdictions. First of these points is easiest. The city does not have any unique or additional solar requirements. When we review plans and installations, it's to assure compliance with the minimum safety standards set by the Florida Building Code, the National Electric Code, and the Fire Prevention Code. Licensed engineers, installers should not have a problem ensuring the solar system meets proper specifications and codes. Proper designed and installed solar systems are remarkably safe, but like any electrical systems, they carry a live load. Short circuits, reverse current, and ground fault can all cause structural fires. Improper labeling or configuration can put electrical current where it shouldn't be and create a safety hazard for everyone. At the permitting level, the city is navigating 2 challenges: the volume of solar applications and the quality of these applications. The city received 438 permit applications in 21 and 22 that came from 92 different contractors. This is not unique to Lakeland. Solar activity is growing at a pace throughout Florida. Some applications we received are well done and we're able to issue the permit fairly quickly. Others require lots of staff time and multiple rounds of reviews. The biggest obstacle to quick turnaround is having to return plans to the applicant for correction multiple times. As you can see from the first chart on the left is by round. In 21 and 22, only about half of the applicants got it right the first time or corrected everything with only one remark, resubmittal. Once it gets into multiple rounds of reviews, the cost adds up for the contractor, the customer, and the city. The pie chart shows the average time between submission and issuance of the permit. So when we send it back to the applicant, we have no control over how long it takes to resubmit.
You receive all the blame.
Correct. In a moment, I'll walk you through what we have done so far and what we're planning next. But this is something we've been working on since last summer. Looking at this year, you can see that has already made a big difference. There are still lots of different vendors coming in, many for the first time, but 84 of our applications were approved over the year, needed one round revision at most, and 40% of the applicants received their permit within 10 days. The big question we looked at last summer was, how can we streamline the permit process without compromising the safety standards? We support solar, but it must be done right. So our challenge has been to help contractors help us, which in turn help the customer. Step one was research. Understanding that our issues are not unique. We looked at more than 120 jurisdictions around the country to find out what works. Step two was reviewing all of our processes and documents, looking for things we can do to make it easier for contractors to meet code requirements. We created a solar-only application instead of the general all-purpose electrical permit. We simplified the checklist, cut the word count, added links, and put illustrated examples of different labels that are needed. We also created a fill-in-the-blank packet to help applicants complete the application process. During our research, we learned about SolSmart, a national program funded by the U.S. Department of Energy. SolSmart provides local government the best practice to make solar adoption easier and more affordable. Our third step was reaching out to SolSmart for guidance. They reviewed everything we had done and made a few additional recommendations, which we followed. The result was a silver designation for the city of Lakeland, recognizing that we are following the national best practice in our solar permitting and inspection process, as well as our planning and zoning, government operation, and community engagement efforts. We received a score of 165, which gets us almost to gold status. We are working on that next. As you can see, the map, Tampa and Sarasota are bronze. Orlando is gold. We're not done. Our next step includes exploring ways to automate the solar permitting review process. The biggest benefit would be reducing the back and forth of reviews. We are in an early conversation with the National Renewable Energy Lab about a new tool that could potentially automate 75 to 80% of our solar permit applications. Commercial installations and complex residential configurations still would need to be examined manually. But for standard installations, it's kind of like TurboTax for the solar permitting. Applicants would go through a series of screens inputting details about the roof, the panel, inverter, the mounting system, and so forth. If there's an incorrect calculation or component that is wrong size, they will get an error message and not be able to move forward. Once they correct it, Solar App Plus would forward the complete files to our website for final approval. There is no cost to the city to use the software, but applicants pay a $25 fee. Once we have the new automation process in place, we will be reaching out to our solar contractors who have applied for the solar permits in the last 2 years to provide them, to help them understand the most common mistakes and how to avoid them. We will be partnering with Lakeland Electric on a consumer support campaign. We will also provide regional leadership to all the cities and counties in our area that are dealing with the same challenges. Through the Building Official Association, I have already shared some of our ideas, and there's a lot of interest. With that said, we are here to support the future of solar. And now I will pass it back to Scott.
Still, that, lot of effort on their part. Like, recognizing an issue and then doing something about it, so before this solar thing becomes real evident in our normal business, that we're able to respond to the needs of our customers. All right, let's look at what Lakeland Electric's been seeing. That includes the city, but it also includes the county. So new interconnections are up 60%, right? We're adding about 80 new customers a month now. That's a effort from a resource perspective for us. That's a lift. The first 8 years that we did this, we added 500 customers. The next 2 years, we added another 500 customers, and it got us to 1,000. This year, so far, January to June, I've added another 552 customers. So if you look at the scale of 8 years, 2 years, 6 months, that's how fast we're adding 500 customers. Pretty soon, it may be a month that we're adding 500. So we've got to get better at this real quick, and we're doing it now. So we're currently at 1,552, which is now greater than 1% of our overall generation portfolio. So we need to get going, and we are. Go to the next slide. Of course, we have the utility scale solar at RP Funding Center, Airport, Bella Vista. We're looking for new ways to do that and leverage it too. If you look at Lakeland Linder, that's been there kind of the longest, we're at 7.9 million kilowatt hours. So what you find is over time, right, you get that solar energy across 10 or 15 years, you've actually started to do something. All these together only 14 megawatts, right? 14 and a half. We're looking for another big hit that could leverage us properly. Go ahead for the next one. All right, here's what we've done too. Hit it one more time. I think there's a thing that flies up, yeah. So our interconnection agreement, once they get past permitting, right, that's an electrical permit that gets permitted by the building. It meets electrical, fire, and human safety needs. That's all we have. And then the next thing we do is get a permit with us. It says, you are now part of the grid, and here's the expectations you're to get once you have this solar. Lots of contractor and engineer velocity. What he talked about, even now, we're getting new contractors. Folks can get a bunch of panels, sell them, and then the next thing you know, they're on top of a roof installing them for somebody at a certain price. We're having a hard time managing all the different contractors that are coming and going too. They'll hit, they'll drop it, they'll charge a bill, and then we find out it's there, and then we're the bad guy that makes them do things. So we got to reach out to the public and let them know what they need to expect before they get too far along the process. And I've got a commercial later that talks about those things too. We've got to find software to do this too. So currently Jacksonville Electric, they have a interconnection software that they're using, and they're finding successful, because imagine what Jacksonville's going through right now too. So we've already got with them. We're going to see if we can use that software to kind of get us a tool too, so we're not passing emails back and forth, and we're not doing the standard PDF, fill this out, send me these documents. We got to get more streamlined there too. And lastly, we got to figure out a path going forward. So as these incremental numbers like approach higher and higher and higher, we got to be able to resource here to meet the needs of our customers too. So we're making sure from an organization perspective, we're built resource-wise, technology-wise, and capability that allows us to meet the needs. Go to the next one. All right, you're thinking about going solar. There's 5 questions you need to ask yourself. And this is for the public as well too. So what's your monthly bill, and what's going to be your monthly cost of solar? It will not be free. It'll be tax incentivized or subsidized in some way, but you will have a monthly cost of solar. Like I said, they're around $30,000 to put in. Someone's got to pay for the not subsidized and tax piece of it. You need to do the math on that and figure out what's going on there for your business, your home. Who's the vendor? I had a guy come to my front door, had a T-shirt on, tried to sell me solar. Imagine that conversation was fun, right? So he came to my front door and he had a KSI or LBL or something. I'm like, hey, so who am I doing business with? LBL? He's like, no, we got bought last week. We're somebody else now. And I'm like, oh, great. So that's the kind of thing you remember. You're buying a 10 to 20-year asset. It needs to be a vendor that you trust and you know is going to be around, because when something happens, you need someone to be able to call. Is solar right for your roof? That seems kind of obvious. If you're north facing or if you're covered in trees, there's a lot of folks making bad decisions about their putting in solar and not getting the amount of sun exposure in the right place that makes sense for them. And lastly, what's your goal, right? So if you got a 15-year or 20-year return on investment, is your roof right for it? You got a 15-year-old roof and you expect to get 20, 25 more years, right? You got a problem. So your best time to do this is if you're doing a roof replacement, and couple it with our roofing contractors to make that a one-time purchase, and you do both things. If you're on any kind of years of roof in, we're doing 15 years now with insurance out there, right? You got to watch them. So it's too late, and you got to think about what your goal is too. So if you want to do more sustainable energy, okay, then it's the right move. But you got to remember there's still business to this, and it's got to make sense for you as a customer. I've had folks who had a $150 a month bill are paying $160 a month in solar now. And even with the reduction in solar, right, they've just made a bad decision. So we got to help them along the way. We're here to do that. We're going to continue to do those things. So rethink how we engage with our customers. After the fact's too late, right? We got to get out in front of them. We need to do more messaging of, welcome to the team, you're on the grid now. You got to understand how energy is being used. You got to understand how you can save. And for most people, they consider it I bought something and it arrived on my porch the next day, I should be able to use it. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Beyond the electrical, fire, and human safety, you got to understand how the grid operates and how energy works. So it's a learning for some people. As you walked down this hallway right here and came into this room, you saw some murals out front. The Soul Smart Silver was hanging up and some murals. Catherine did a fantastic event downtown with folks, celebrating our 1,000 customers. I guess every month we'll be celebrating another 1,000 now. So, but anyway, so we'll pick different numbers going forward because it's going to go so fast. But what a great opportunity for the community to be involved in and show that we're part of the process. And lastly, we got a new commercial, and it's out airing right now. It's in the space. This should be something that kind of triggers folks to see and think about calling us first.
Getcha.
What in the world? You didn't check the dimensions of those, did you? And who are you? I'm from Lakeland Electric. You were thinking about buying solar panels, weren't you? Actually, I was. Lakeland Electric has energy auditors just waiting to answer any questions you may have about solar and electric needs, so things like this don't happen to you. We've done this over 1,000 times. If you're thinking of installing solar panels, call before you install. Lakeland Electric, powered for life.
Good.
Next one, I think we're at the question portion.
Committee member English.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you and Dale. Dale, thank you for your diligence to get this out to the public, because a lot of people don't understand that we're not any different than any other municipality or whatever.
Exactly.
The question I've got to Scott is, are we having any problems outside the city limits in the county as far as permitting or whatever? Are they on the same page as Dale's team? Or
That's part of our regional leadership we have to do. Every Friday, I get county permits that were issued for solar. We're hooked up into their system, and I'm getting those now. It was, for a while, my reverse power alarms and my smart grid were finding them already done, but we've actually worked with the county too. So every Friday, I get a list of permits pulled for solar in the county that I can then start to send out a welcome package, welcome to the team, here's your interconnect agreement, get through it. So it's a little slower than I immediately get everything from the city because we're on the same software. I get a report from the county that tells me what's going on too. So we're gonna see if we can reach out to them and I can get in like an as-pulled permit thing, because the faster the better. And we're gonna do that at some of our regional leadership. We're gonna push back out.
appreciate that too. Question I have, and I appreciate your comment about the roofing situation. The concern I've always had all the way along with solar and I think you've heard me express it before, and I'm gonna do it again. As an old insurance agent, you can get a Florida roof that it's got a 25-year guarantee, but no roof lasts over 15 years.
Correct.
So the situation is, what is the, I'm gonna call it mortgage? What is the mortgage time on most of these solar installations? Well over 15 years. So there's gonna be at
15
least
and
one.
15's the shortest, 15 and beyond.
Yeah, 15 and beyond. So even if you've got a new roof and you haven't paid your solar commitment mortgage off yet, you're going to have a re-roof job. Again, knowing who your contractor is and knowing that roofing companies don't want to deal with removing, they'll remove the solar panel all you want, but they're not going to reinstall it. So knowing who your contractor is, I mean, that is the biggest fear I've got, that they've signed an agreement to enter this with Lakeland Electric. Then they come up and say, oh, 10 years down the road, we need that solar panel pulled off and a new roof put on our house because the insurance company's not going to insure us. Oh, okay, well, we'll put on a new roof. Well, the roofer's not going to put the panel back on. Well, let me call the contract. Oh, it's an unknown number. You can't find the contractor that sold you, but a mortgage company or someone else is still being paid for that. So that consumer, thinking they were going to save money and jump in and be really committed to the environment, now has one financial problem after another. And can we go back to the Lakeland Airport photo? Oh, there it was. Okay, the Lakeland Airport photo. I want to tell you, that's the English farm. I'm the third. Senior owned that 160 acres that farm sits on. That was my granddad's land. Thank you for buying it. Thank you for using it.
These meetings are just so meaningful. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. I have several questions that, is solar similar to Generac? If the power goes out, can it switch over and solar automatically kick into your home?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's one.
Wow, that was fast.
Number two, if you have solar and I have a Generac system, are they going to sync at some point in time? How does that, what complications arise there?
Well, they would have a control system on their system. If the power does go out, right now it is set to shut off the solar system and fire up your Generac and power your house at that time.
They pretty much like that.
It might be a few seconds. It
It'll
might take a little
blink
bit
in
to
there.
gas it up and get it running.
They're completely independent
Yeah.
systems.
I know that, but I
They're
didn't know if
silos.
there was.
They'll
if there's
isolate
a-
from each other probably, and then.
But they
one or
are
the other.
interconnected together so that there is a shut off for the solar system if it's during the day. Most of the time your generator fires up at night when they're, during a storm and stuff.
And then, there again, if we're gonna commit to solar in the city of Lakeland, and make a Jack's point, we may need to have to change our setbacks on our stuff, because I'm not putting a solar system on my roof. I've been through that before. And I'm gonna have to do it in a side yard or somewhere else, that we're gonna have to, if we're gonna do something, maybe this is, and I also wanna address new construction, what's the relationship of new construction to solar as well? But to get back to your point, is we may have to do some code differentials to worry, because I've got a spot, I can do them beside my home, it's access, but there again, I'm gonna have to get a variance from a setback and some other things like that.
We're seeing that in the county already. They're putting them on the ground.
Pardon me?
They're putting them on the ground in the
I won't mind
backyards.
elevated though, because I don't wanna.
Well, that's on you. You buy that.
I'm gonna have some shade in my yard.
And there is some codes that you have to follow with the NAC
You
on
have
that.
to
hit-
get-
but-
If you've got an acre, a half acre, you're not gonna have an issue. If you've got a 65-foot lot, you got a big problem.
And what you're seeing in the county doesn't change setbacks. The setbacks still exist. So it's going to be a function of the lot. It's every house, every roof, every business, every lot that you have to assess whether or not you have the capacity to be able to make it work. And that's why it increments over slower over time.
Are you seeing more new construction get solar?
Yes. Yeah, so driving out to play some golf a couple weekends ago, cut in between was at 529 heads over to Haines City. They brand new subdivision, 400 homes, every home with solar on it by the builder, on build, already done. So they're coming.
Which takes us to last month's presentation on the microgrids within neighborhoods as well.
Absolutely.
And then one other issue, again, if I can remember what I've had in my notes here, but I'll play for you. I'll find you jumped on top of me here.
I apologize, sir.
I'll ask Scott later.
All right. What made Orlando gold?
Next day turnaround on permits.
Yeah, Commissioner McCarley.
And this can be answered at a later time, but is there any, are there any studies or data on the environmental impacts of solar farms?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, can you send those to me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just recently in the news, real heavily solar panel recycling has had to happen, right? So 10 years ago, when we started putting some of this in, wind turbines, solar panels, somebody's got to do something with the stuff that's starting to age out now. And it's a big concern. So environmental impact and all that kind of stuff are still there.
And it was
Even-
lower efficiency.
Yeah.
And with the, when you're covering up green space, whether it's usable land or not, whether it's wetland or not, it has an impact into our whole water cycle. So those are things that, like, it's ironic when you're trying to be a sustainable human and have solar on your roof, so, you're not dealing with fuels and things like that, but you're hindering the environment in the process. I just wonder, from a public consumption standpoint, how much awareness there is that there will always be impacts. We always are going to impact our environment in one way, shape, or form. So what's that trade-off look like, especially if you don't want it on your roof and you're covering up, land?
Or you're chopping down trees.
Or you're chopping down trees to make room for solar fields. Whenever I go I-75 to I-10, and I drive past that FPNL solar farm, I'm like, oh, I wonder how that hampers the water cycle in rain.
There's one just north of Perry, Georgia, and it's on rolling land. And once again, to your point, what's it doing with the water resources in that area?
Well, we have to have trees and green and grass to have rain. Not even where the water goes, in the land, and if it's trickling and matriculating down back into the aquifer, but what is it doing to that cycle? And are we studying that, and are we looking at that? I'm sure there are much smarter people than I am that are doing that. But if you have anything, would you just send it to me?
Will do.
Thanks.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. Again, our property in Lake City, they just put a 400-acre solar farm they tore down. They just bulldozed pine forest. One of them just tore it right down and put 400 acres of solar in one big block. So we're losing some stuff you're talking about. There's a greening component. But the question there is, we see all these things about free. What is the real cost? What part is free, if there is a free thing?
There is no free. So there's tax incentives and subsidies you can get through both the state and the federal government that you get some discounts. But at the end of the day, you're still paying for that solar system. There is no free solar on your home. Call now. Don't call now. It's not free.
But we need for our customers, because our customers will say that, and we need for them to understand that. That's why it's important that we have the education piece. It's a have your cake and eat it too type thing. And we were talking a minute ago about Generacs and other things to back up. So if we're going to stay connected and make sure that a customer has power that never stops flowing, there's a cost to that. And that's why it's not free. The fuel is free, sure, when the sun shines and, you got a panel that's pushing out power, that's free at that moment. But if you want power when the sun goes down, if you want power when the clouds come through, or if you want power, and I've seen people out our neighborhood has a lot of Generacs, and I've seen people out there working on them. So if you want, power when your Generac's got the cover laid off to the side and they're working on it, then you still need Lakeland Electric. So that's the reason it's not free. We have to stay connected, and we can't connect and be prepared to serve people for free. But it is an important, I'll say what I said last time at the utility committee, there's a tremendous momentum toward moving toward a renewable future. And all of these things are going to be worked through. They're all concerns, they're all very legitimate concerns, but they're gonna all be worked through. And solar is going to play a part in our future, and we've accepted that that's the case, and we want to do it in a kind of a reasonable way. I think this effort that Dale and Scott and their folks have participated in is tremendously important toward getting it right for individual solar customers. The block energy thing that Cindy presented last time is tremendously important, because that's a good way to go in from the ground up and get all the pieces, parts right. That won't probably ever be all of our capacity need, but it is going to be a part of our capacity need, which is actually advantageous to us as well as the customer, because we don't have to go out and be planning a $1 billion power plant. So all of this stuff can work together. There's a lot of problems. We will work through those problems, but it's moving toward that, and we want to keep moving with it. We don't want to get ahead of it or too far behind it. We want to keep moving with it, and that's our strategy, and this all plays into that strategy.
Well, and the problem is that the customer who seeks sustainability is less sensitive to pricing.
Yes.
And so, because the causal reason is higher, when in fact that sensitivity really needs to be part of what they're measuring.
So not everybody would look at, and Scott mentioned a while ago that a customer that was paying 100 now is paying 160. And not everybody would say I made a bad business decision. Some people would say that is exactly what I intended to do. I want to be part of that renewable push. It might be, I might be paying that much more now, but as things change in the future, the delta between what I'm paying and what I could be paying if I just stuck with fossil fuels, it would be smaller now, but it'll be smaller in the future. It's bigger now, it'll be smaller in the future, and I'm going to be helping out this renewable push. So there are quite a few, and we want to serve those customers too that want to do it.
That's a choice.
Yes.
Other, Commissioner McCarley.
Well, I think it just offers, two things popped in my head is if it sounds too good to be true, it is universally, like a universal truth. So if you think it's free, there's always going to be a cost to something. The second part of it is that I think is really important for the public to understand is when you're looking at big societal issues and service issues like this, whether it's the education system or transportation or utility management, they are big issues that require a lot of solutions. So I love, Mr. Beckham, that you just brought up that this is a piece of the long-term solution, but there's not a silver bullet to any one of these things in our world that's going to fix it. If so, we'd already be doing it. So I think it's really imperative in our messaging out to the community is, hey, this is a really important piece, and you all are taking it very seriously, and you want to stay ahead, like you said, you want to stay in that sweet spot of not falling behind or getting too far ahead. I think it's imperative for the public to understand that it's one piece of a bigger puzzle and a bigger group of solutions to helping us serve our community really well, which I think you all are doing. And Dale, to you for the permitting piece of this presentation, kudos to you guys for looking at it and taking a hard look and figuring out how to do it better. And obviously, Scott, you guys just do great work at Lakeland Electric.
Commissioner Reed and then Commissioner English.
Thank you. One more question.
Commissioner.
Are there any repercussions to the vendors, marketers, salespeople that give out false information and then they come back and find out that it's costing them more and it doesn't give them return that they want? It kind of reminds me of that one story, the lady got a whole bunch of new windows and they came and asked for the money and you told me they're going to pay for themselves type scenario. So do we have vendors that we have to, and we penalize them of some sort?
At this time, there's really nothing we can penalize them on. They signed a contract, so it kind of gets to like a civil issue between the vendor and the homeowner. So, we can possibly, once we find out something like that, we can put a red flag on them, but we can't really stop them from pulling a permit either. It's just, it's part of the state statute. Everybody is allowed that. When it comes to them being licensed and whatnot, then we could go after them through like their licensing board, the DDPR and stuff. But, it's really on the contract that they wrote.
That's why it's really important for them to heed our commercials and say, if you're thinking about doing solar, call us. And when they call us, we want the word to get around, hey, you really should call Lakeland Electric, because they're gonna help you out with this, along with permitting in the city. They're gonna help you figure this out and do it right, and not, do something that you shouldn't do. They're not pro-solar or anti-solar. They're gonna help you out and make you do it right. They wanna serve you as our customer, whether you go solar or not. That's the message we really wanna get out. My concern is that they will call us and we will sound like we're picturing it as a very onerous thing. Oh, you might have to take your roof off and all this. We don't want to come across as being heavy-handed about it being a negative thing. We want to give them the information, but say, hey, we're here to help any way we can. It's either good for you or it's not, based on what your decision is. If you want to do it, if you're looking to do it to save cost, it's your decision ultimately, but we want you to know, we want you to have the right information. So when you sign something, you know what you signed.
I mean, we also, going back to the roof, on our application, we do ask the age of the roof. If it's a high number, we will reach out to the homeowner and say, you sure you want to do this? And kind of give them the facts of what's going to happen, but, it's really, ultimately, it's going to be up to the customer if they want to go with it or not. We can't really talk them out of
Is
it.
it your job to do, who does the energy calculation? Is it the city or the vendor?
Vendor does that.
Just going to this vendor issue, because it's come up a lot, let's flip this the other way, is there a positive way objectively to populate information that we could have that says, here are the number of permits that were done, here's the numbers of days by vendor, and you rank it by some objective order, that people could look at the grid and go, gosh, I'd want to be talking to these top 5 or something. Is there a way to do something like that without bias?
Vendor,
That's the question of bias. I mean, we can
Vendor
come up with
preference
any
for-
grid
yeah.
you want, but, is it fair? Are we gonna get repercussion,
Okay.
from their attorneys, and some sort of slandering or not, but we have all those facts, yes, but.
You can help business advocacy groups put that information out, I would imagine.
We could do that,
Part of
but
it.
as the billing department, we can't. We
Right,
can
that's-
offer
that's a good
information.
thought. That's a good thought.
Yeah, we can offer the information and whatever you do with it. We just can't publicly, present it that way.
Remember English?
I know there used to be a roofing and sheet metal association. Is there any association, any quality association of solar contractors similar to the roofing and sheet metal association?
Not that I know of at this time.
Okay, so they've not coalesced together so they can self-police or self-manage themselves, as far as you know?
Oh, not right now, they have not. I guess, it's in the phase of like a Wild West.
And that's what I'm
They
feeling.
need to have, a little more organization on that, for sure.
Everybody's trying to get in the business, and nobody cares what the other guy's doing. I'm gonna do what I wanna do, and we're gonna run through this. The only thing I've gotta say about, you just said a few minutes ago, there's some stuff that's 10 years old that we're having to recycle right now. Well, if somebody's got a 15 or greater year ownership payment in something, technology is going to move forward. So you're going to have to determine as a consumer when to step in and when the technology of the solar panel, solar batteries, and the remainder of that goes into your home or your business, and is it adequate to do at that particular time? Just like I heard Prius over here. The Prius was a great car because it came out, but Tesla's knocked it in the dirt. So here you go with technology improvements over solar panels and solar reduction in usage from the electrical corporation. So I just, I would caution anybody that's looking at solar, find out if it's the latest technology, the most recent application of technology that they're gonna put on their home. I just have fears that later on, the city, the county, the Lakeland Electric Group, and other utilities are gonna be tagged with something that says, well, you didn't tell me that it was gonna cost me to get rid of this stuff, because the contractor's not gonna tell you that. I mean, a roofing contractor, when he comes in to re-roof your home, he takes care of the demo, right? But you don't know that those asphalt shingles have to be demoed differently than what something else would be. So, I just.
Thank you. Utility Committee Member Troutman, you had your hand up earlier.
Two questions. What gets us over the line for those last 35 points for the gold standard? And the path forward, does it include, what's the next likely step in the path forward? Is it more rooftop solar at some of the local businesses that can offer their rooftops? What's that path forward process, likely next step?
So Orlando's next day permitting, or permitting, as long as it's engineer signed, boom, it's out the next day. We're still, we're not resourced to pull that off. So we'll get towards gold when we can get there, when the resources are right and the volume's up. As far as path forward next, it's education, engagement, and information. As much as our customers are putting on residential and our commercial folks are doing it, we're responding to that as we go. So the strategy is to manage the influx. Next is looking at utility scale solar, looking at ways that solar penetrations are actually going to affect our entire Central Florida pool, and then the MREP engines as a result to, in accompaniment with that solar penetration, support the variability of the renewable resource. So all those things are built in the path. Probably sometime January or February, we'll bring the Energy Authority is doing a strategic 5, 10, and 15-year look for us. We're going to bring those results and say, here's where the grid's going to impact. Here's where we're looking at as the penetration levels and EVs hit us and all those things. We'll have a strategy that we lay out. You should see that around February of next year, where the plan's laid out piece by piece.
I answer both your questions.
All right, can I add to his
Sure.
question? We are looking at Solar App Plus. That's the automated system that I mentioned in my presentation. We're in agreement with them right now, plus we're updating our system for our permitting stuff. So we, as soon as that is implemented, we're going to go forward probably with the Solar App Plus, which will offer all our vendors a automated process for their permits, and that will take us to the one-day turnaround and put us gold. That's our goal.
So,
I got quite a few questions. To follow up on his, what's Orlando's volume versus ours as far as applications? Because if we don't have enough to put more resources yet, what's an idea of their volume application?
Probably, my guess would be double. I don't think, there's probably a few more individual percentage-wise in Orlando doing solar than maybe Lakeland. But then you can just pretty much double the volume, and that would be close to what they're doing. So they're probably doing maybe 200 a month.
And then to follow up on something you said a lot earlier, a lot of solar farms right now are either panels or nothing. I saw some stuff about farms where, like literal farms, some vegetation or some plants, they like a lot of sunlight. Some do bad with a lot of sunlight. So whatever those plants are, I've seen some where they've put solar panels up high with the farm that's growing the plants. I don't remember what plants they are, but it is something where it's both. Like, okay, it gives it just enough shading for that plant to grow without too much sunlight. Now, what does that mean for us? I don't know, maybe.
Agrivoltaics.
Right.
And
bless you.
so the issue in Florida is that structure that's going to hold it up in the air at 150 miles an hour with winds. So making sure that's structurally sound enough to deal with Florida is probably where your additional cost comes.
Right. So it's not ideal, it's just saying that there is a potential solution.
Sure.
But land rights, property rights, where there's cost. I put my phone on silent, but my watch is not on silent. There was something you said, but I'll swing back around to that. So the customer, I guess there's two main motivations. It's either environmental or cost, right? Is it possible that do we understand our customer base, or could we do a survey as part of the process? Hey, are you doing this because of environmental? They don't, I mean, obviously it's optional. Do we have something like that? And I'll lead that to the next question.
I think we could ask.
We can add more tools to our website
Okay.
and have all the resources they want. The question is getting them there. Are they going to come and utilize our resources? I know Lakeland Electric already has different calculators and stuff for that.
So if it's environmental, I guess part of it's communication. We do have solar. Maybe whether it's enough for them or not, they may not know. Hey, Lakeland Electric is doing this much percentage solar, and that might make them feel happy enough that we're doing enough solar that maybe they lose that motivation to do it for environmental reasons. On the second part with the cost, you know how we do free energy audits? Like you can schedule a free audit of if you got leaks in your home. Is it possible to make that part of the application process where if you apply for this, we have somebody who does a solar calculation audit? That way, it's really an information warfare. They're gonna say what they wanna say.
We already do that. If
do?
if you call for, I'm thinking about solar, I'll send someone to your house and we'll talk about it with you. We do that now.
Okay, it's just trying to get to them first.
Mhm.
And that leads to something I think he brought up, which was, and you guys may have already covered it, it's between the city and the county, because if you live outside city limits, if they pull the permits, then you know who to reach out to and talk to, you know, before they get too far. Is that something that we are working on?
Their bill says Lakeland Electric on it, so even if they're in the county, they know, we're the resource for energy.
Service provider. Good?
No, one more.
Okay.
And this one just popped in my head, and it came off with something Bill said, but I'm looking from a consumer protection perspective. If you go to a car shop to get your car fixed, if it's less than $100, they don't have to give you an estimate. But if it's more than $100, they have to give you a written estimate so you don't get a surprise bill. I have friends who do solar, so I'm not trying to pick sides. But from consumer protection, and maybe Cynthia back there might be a part of this solution for legislative, but is it possible that we push something where, to hold them accountable, if they give an estimate, it's legally binding? Because what they should do is go pull the customer's account. Because if somebody like me, I use a lot of electricity, so my return on investment will be many years less. But somebody who lives just 2 people and their electric bill is $50 a month, their return on investment might be 20+ years. So something where they are informed, hey, based on your usage, your return on investment doesn't add up with what they say.
Call us, we'll send someone out there and talk you through all those things. As far as the consumer protection piece, that needs to be done at the state level.
Right. That'll be state level, but it's one of those things where if they do a estimate and it's written, it's kind of legally binding within a certain range.
That would be statutorily done at the
Right.
state of Florida through the legislature.
Correct.
And also, you know, combating probably private and corporate lobbying interest. With regard to that, as if, I don't even know if there's an association of installers or companies that provide solar. I bet it's still, is there, okay, Cindy's nodding. There is an association, so I'm sure that would have to be fought in Tallahassee during legislative session, because they would probably don't want any onerous regulatory looking or saying anything, so that would be a long-term, a goal, definitely, and I think we should do that for our consumers. But on the other hand, the onus is on the consumer to sort of make sure, again, that, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, and being aware of what's happening. But I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think we're all, what I am hearing from all of our committee members is that we're all concerned about the consumers and not them not being taken advantage of. I think we all are in agreement on that. Committee Member Tillman.
Have you seen any movement towards like community solar gardens where, you know, a developer can come in and drop in a solar farm and then contract it out individually?
We're starting to see that pick up now, yeah, absolutely.
I had a contractor come to me about a year ago. He's been doing this throughout the state where some of the retention ponds, they got like a floating solar array. You know, instead of not utilizing that property, they just got a fence around it and nobody can use it, you know, for all the storm drains and stuff where they, his idea is what he's been doing. He researched it and is doing it in like South Carolina and stuff where the solar field actually floats. It's a floating boat. So
It helps prevent evaporation too, in certain areas. Sorry.
So with that, you know, if one of those popped up, so you have a generating facility. And you thought about how that energy going across the system would be charged for using the system?
That we have a pretty good idea what energy produced on the grid costs us, and then how we manage it. We still have to pay for transformers, poles, and wires, and so there's still a cost to even someone else doing that. And then what would that purchase power agreement price look like, and what does it do based on its energy use? We are actually in a DOE funded grant to try a solar floating retention pond, so we can take a look at it and look at as a pilot. It's got a 50% DOE cost share, so we can look at floating solar and see how that works for us too.
Because there is that cost associated with using the transmission system, depending on what level it comes in.
So did you want to add? I didn't want to, okay. Any other questions from committee members?
We need two more issues we have to resolve on our budget, on our utility meeting today too.
Yeah, okay. Getting
I
there.
want to make sure you don't want to join.
I read it. Thank you. Are y'all, okay, we're good. Y'all are great. Thank you so much. Ramona, please, come help me.
Mine's not as exciting, unfortunately. Ramona Siriani from the City Attorney's Office. Good afternoon. The first item that we have is an agreement with Cornet Technology, Inc. This is for computer hardware purchase to upgrade Lakeland Electric's energy management system infrastructure. And this particular agreement, I think, ties in well with Larry Caveman Watt's electric system compliance and security presentation that he did, because the importance of upgrading this equipment obviously is to maintain reliability, but also to protect and safeguard our assets. So this energy management system infrastructure, also the SCADA systems infrastructure, the existing system is 35 years old, and we are seeking to procure new hardware, computer hardware, so that this system can communicate with our other substations, and it's also the primary system to monitor the transmission and distribution power. So it's critical to our infrastructure. The city's purchasing department approved Cornet as a sole source supplier for this particular purchase because the vendor is the original equipment manufacturer. Once the purchase order is approved by the City Commission, the implementation for the computer hardware is anticipated to occur in May of 2024. The purchase will be governed by the terms and conditions set forth not only in the city's purchase order, but in Cornet's proposal. And the total cost of this is $231,136. And we'd ask for your favorable approval.
We have a motion for approval.
Move.
And a second? We do have a second. Thank you. Questions for Ms. Siriani or any comments?
I've got one.
Yes, Commissioner Simmons?
What is the, what equipment are we actually getting? Do you know?
I'm going to let Roy Osborne specify exactly what the hardware consists of,
Right.
and we are somewhat vague in terms of you'll see there's no attached a proposal or anything like that to this particular agenda item because it's exempt from disclosure pursuant to the Florida Public Records Act just for maintenance of security and compliance.
Yeah, so the equipment is for serial communication, so it allows the EMS to talk to each substation. So it's, being 35 years old, kind of got our return on investment. We're starting to see a little bit of failure there on some spots, so we're trying to stay ahead of it and replace the equipment before any failures happen.
How many, just a follow-up question, how many locations will this equipment cover?
So this equipment's located in the data centers, and then the data centers talk to each substation individually.
How many substations?
We have 33 substations.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Great. Other questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. It'll go to the City Commission meeting on Monday.
Yes. The second item that we have is an agreement with PowerServe Technologies. This is for electrical system protective relay panels for the RICE project. These specifically are 4 protective relay panels that are for the transmission line between the Rice plant and Tenorock substation and generator step-up transformer. They'll provide the power protection and metering for not only the Rice engines, but 2 of the station service transformers, the generator step-up transformer, and the emergency diesel generator and backup transformer as well. The purchasing department issued an invitation to bid back in June for qualified contractors to design, procure the material, and fabricate and deliver the electrical system protective relay panels. We received 3 proposals. PowerServe Technology, based out of Jupiter, Florida, was the lowest price bid. And that came in at $156,000. Upon approval by the City Commission, the equipment is scheduled to be delivered back in January of 2024. And once they're delivered, they'll be installed by our above ground contractor that the City Commission previously approved, which is Rayco Industrial, to install those for the Rice project. And we'd ask for your favorable approval.
A motion for approval? So moved. A motion from Tillman, second from Mr. English. Any questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. English.
No, your question, Ramona, sorry.
Okay.
Why is Rayco?
David's here.
Yeah, I see him here. Why is Rayco installing instead of the contractor that's building it? I understand there's a contractor that builds stuff. Are they gonna be liable for the interconnect once it's connected?
No, they will not be liable. The contractor's just purchasing the panels that's pre-wired out to test switches. And so the equipment that's on this is protection relays and metering relays, and then we have test switches. And then from that wiring, we go to our instrumentation and our transformers to get the information to control the system. And so the reason why Rayco's installing it is it's literally equipment supply. You buy a panel, it's got the relays on it, and then we connect our wires up to it, and then we program it to do the function we need.
Okay, but there is if the relays aren't working properly, the contractor that's building it is responsible for those relays to work
They will.
optimally as they're installed by Rayco.
Absolutely, absolutely. They'll be under warranty from them. They'll actually be under warranty from the original supplier, which is Schweitzer. 2 of these relays we've already got installed in Tenorock, and then we have on our side of the street, we'll have relays that talk to those relays to give us protection for the line, and then the other ones are for differential protection for the transformers, and then also watt-hour meters and things like that. They're for building purposes and things like that.
I understand somebody building a panel and handing it off to somebody else, but what's inside the guts of the panel still got to operate appropriately, and that's my real question.
Absolutely, and that's where we standardize with what the city has. That's what the Schweitzer relays are for, and this is standard stuff that we have in our substations and the other power plants throughout our organization.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? This too will go in front of the City Commission with your approval on Monday for our commission. Mr. Beckham, do you have anything else?
That is it. Thank you all. Thank you for sticking around. We went a little over, but it was a great discussion, and I really appreciate it.
And just as someone who sits on the committee, I apologize to staff earlier. I missed the last 3 committee meetings for unforeseen circumstances for 2 of those 3. But I appreciate this dialogue today so much with the presentations that we had. Thank y'all for participating so well, and we will adjourn. See you next time.